Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. It's free. Only thing free you'll get these days, right? Today we're going to be talking about actress, philanthropist, daughter of the Diana Ross, Tracee Ellis Ross. Tracee Ellis Ross recently sat down with former First Lady Michelle Obama and they discussed a variety of things, but the things that we'll be discussing on today is her personal life. Tracee Ellis Ross is not married. She's 52 years old, never been married, no children, and recently sat down to discuss the grief and the emotions that she's been feeling behind that. Let's take a listen.
Reasons. I mean, we've talked about this, that often I date younger men. And a lot of it is because...
Let's stop on that, folks.
Oh my God, we had a great dinner. We had a great dinner, by the way, where across the table, your husband goes, "But why?" And I said, well, maybe because I can.
Yes.
That I'm older, I'm also very embodied. I am a full, very whole person who knows myself, who is in charge of my life, and who lives a very full, just robust life. So it's not just age, it's like life experience and sort of a difference. But I had to ask myself the question, why? Why does this keep sort of coming up other than they're hot and gorgeous?
There's that.
There's that. But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks. And anything that starts to smell of that for me, I did enough of it where I was controlled and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize, and I have no interest in it. And I will not dream of my wedding growing up. And that's not to say that I didn't dream of the bigness of my life. And, you know, as much as grief does surface for me around not having children and not having a partner, I still wouldn't want the wrong partner.
That's a great point for people to hear.
I'm not interested in that. You have to make my life better. It can't just be, you know, I'm in a relationship to be in a relationship. So even though the grief does emerge and that comes and I hold that, I think of what I've done, and I woke up every morning trying to do my best. I didn't wake up one morning and be like, I'm going to mess this day up.
That's right.
So I must be where I'm supposed to be. And I don't know, sometimes I think of all of the things I've done, the courage that I've had to have and what I've had to learn how to navigate as a single person with no one to hide behind. And it's built a really beautiful experience around me. And I have incredible friends.
So what I'd like to address first is the toxic masculinity statement, because that's something that really has died down within the past couple of years or so, but it's still, you know, a thing, obviously. Toxic masculinity is kind of the perspective that men believe that they are inherently in control and or over, you know, dominion, and they run things basically, and you have to listen to them and you have to, you know, obey them, I guess, in a sense. And they are the men that have that particular trait feel like women basically just need to listen to them. Just hush up, listen, you know, go fix me a sandwich and let me get some nookie whenever I feel like it. I think that's overall, and I'm just generalizing here and joking, but in all seriousness, that is how toxic masculinity is viewed, as being this hyper masculine bravado kind of man. And she's been in those particular kind of relationships, and she said she doesn't like to be controlled. You know, she doesn't, you know, want to be told what to do. And to a certain extent, I get that, because as an adult, you know, you probably very well can make your own decisions, you know. So I definitely understand that. And no one wants to feel like they have to, you know, I guess you move out of your parents' house to kind of rule your own house, right? But here's the thing about that. And I'm not privy to, you know, conversations or situations that she's had with these men, just that overall she's viewed them as being, you know, too masculine, basically, toxically masculine. Here's the thing. When you are in a relationship, and this is, for men and women, regardless of who you lie down with, this is, across the board, you can't just do what you want to do. That concept actually applies for any time you interact with anyone other than yourself. That applies to personal relationships, familial relationships, working relationships. Anytime you're dealing with anyone other than you can't just do what you want to do, because at that point, you become part of a team. So you have to be a team player, and you have to do what's good for the team. So I don't know that she gets that. I know her father is in her life. I know Diana Ross has had, I don't know if her and her father were married. I think Diana Ross has maybe children from, I know at least two men, one being Barry Gordy and then one being Tracee Ellis Ross's dad. Now, I don't know if her other children have different fathers, but those are the two men for sure I know have fathered children with her. I don't know how long she grew up in a household with two parents. So some of that may be an influence. And I don't think Diana Ross ever remarried. And I mean, as far as I know, she's still single, right? I don't know what she does, in her own personal time. But I've never seen her down the aisle, right? I've never seen her in companionship. And so when you kind of grow up, and this is going to be bad to say and sad to say, because I think you can have a healthy relationship if you didn't see one growing up. You just have to be very intentional about creating it. When you don't see that rolled in your home, modeled in your home, you have a bit of a skewed mentality towards what a relationship actually is. It's not all romance. It's not all, flowers and candy and butterflies in the stomach. There's some really tough times. And sometimes your relationship can mimic just a friendship at times. I remember talking to an older gentleman who had been married he was older too. Maybe 30 or 40 years. And he said first, we kind of start out as, he said there's 3 phases in a marriage. Your lovers, right? And that's when it's kind of fairly new. You're hot and heavy for one another. Can't keep your hands off each other, lovey-dovey stuff. You move from being lovers to roommates. He said, and this is for his marriage, where it's kind of just like, okay, now you're in the rhythm of, okay, we're going to work, we're raising the kids, we're, paying the bills, and it's the hustle and bustle of life, getting established, getting things taken care of. And then you move into, now we're really good friends, is how we put it. Like, she's really my friend and I am really her friend, meaning that I'm 10 toes down for her. She's 10 toes down for me. I'm not going anywhere. She's not going anywhere. Whatever happens in life, we're going to get through it together. So you go from being lovers to being roommates, which I'm sure there's some loving in there, but there's roommates, right? It's kind of just like plain and, I forgot to bring her flowers. I forgot his, we've got kids, we've got bills. We're not really thinking about nurturing our relationship, every day of the week, to just a bona fide friendship. Okay? But during that period of time, especially during a course of 10, 15, 20-year marriage, he's going to be listening to you. You're going to be listening to him. And you're going to give and take because you're doing this for the betterment of the team. Now, Tracee Ellis Ross has worked on at least 2 shows that I know of for sure, which was Girlfriends and Blackish. She's been in several films. So she's not foreign to the concept of teamwork. Now, I'm not saying that just because, I'm not trying to say that she wasn't in a toxic masculine relationship because she doesn't like teamwork, because again, I'm not privy to those conversations and things that she's dealt with. She's been very demure, very private about, who she's dated and things like that. She's just kind of giving us the overview and a generalization of what she's experienced. But if, for her examples, was being controlled, I would like to know further, what does she mean controlled? Because as someone, and this is kind of just like what Twitter was saying, or X was saying on yesterday, a lot of people were saying like she's older and still posting thirst traps, and maybe she's dated men that don't want her to, post, bikini pictures, or, have butt crack pictures and breast pictures. Like that's men will view that as theirs if they're in a relationship with you. They care about you. Most of the time, they kind of want to keep something to themselves, Like, why are you advertising stuff that's already bought? I guess, you know what I mean? Like, and I guess that's the part of being controlled and being possessive, because it's like, you don't own my body just because we're together. But most of the time, and maybe this is, toxic, again, if a man really does care about you and envisions himself with you, he kind of really doesn't want other men drooling over, what he has, especially in the sense of you posting, half naked pictures. That's not what he wants. Now, I don't know that was an argument that she's had in her relationships, but I could venture to see why that would be an issue. I could see that. Other than that, I can't see why she's single and doesn't have children. She seems like she's very fun to be around. She's witty. She's intelligent. She seems down to earth, can hold a conversation. But even if she could do any of those things, she still seems decent enough, right? Like, I've seen some terrible people, like just god-awful people, in long-lasting ass relationships. So I say all that to say this. The whole toxic masculine thing, I think, needs to be revisited. And expectations need to be understood. And then understood why you have those expectations. Because again, if you didn't grow up in a house with with both of your parents, with your mom and your dad, and this is speaking to those who are, heterosexual. If you didn't grow up in seeing your mom and your dad give and take, and a lot of times, maybe, if dad was the authority figure, dad had the less say so. But I've seen some marriages where mom was like the firm one and dad was like the lenient. Oh, we'll give him another chance. I know they broke curfew, but give him, another chance. I've seen mom, put down the iron fist. So that's not always the case. Now, maybe she leans, to be more towards the masculine side of herself, because I think we all have duality, because it takes a man and a woman to create a baby. I think she might lean more towards, you listen to me unless I listen to you. And if it comes, you can be that way subtly, but if it comes off as overly bearing and aggressive, it's a turnoff, right? Like, how some people are in management positions are really great at getting people to follow their lead, and people happily do it. People volunteer to do it. And then there are other managers or people in leadership roles, and it's just because of how they say it or because of their energy, if you will, you're very hesitant and very resistant. You know what I mean? It's the difference between, hey, y'all, let's, get all this paperwork done. Let's do this. Let's do this together. And hey, somebody coming in with a stack of papers and say, get this done by having some office by 12. You know what I mean? Like, you're being a dick. You know what I mean? So if you come across that way but I've seen people in those type of relationships where someone has been a straight up jerk, but be with someone 20, 30 years. Now, I'm not saying stomach that. I'm not saying swallow what you feel like you shouldn't and stay in situations that you don't feel you deserve, especially if you feel like you're being abused. But I will say again that it does take teamwork. It does take two. And to be in a relationship, you have to be a team player. It's not all about you. It's not all about the other person. It's about what's good for us. And sometimes, I hate to say it, and I was surprised that Michelle Obama didn't say this. Sometimes it is about the other person. I mean, think about it. When former President Barack Obama got into politics, Michelle made it very clear that she's a lawyer, but she's not a politician, not into politics at all. But however, she rode with him, all the way through his political career and through 2 presidential terms. And now she's doing what she wants to do, So yeah, sometimes you do have to put your own feelings, wants, desires aside and totally support your partner. And then when it's your turn, they are to do the same. That's the nature of give and take. That's the nature of a relationship. Now moving on to her grief behind not being partnered and not having children. I still feel like there's a remedy there, right? You're never too old to get married. You can get married at any age. She's 52. It's not the end of the world. She definitely can meet somebody today and be married by the end of the year. That's not out the window. But there are some things that she's going to have to change. And she's going to have to be a bit pliable in terms of her not having children at 52. Science is crazy, right? Like, who knows? I don't know if she's put her eggs in the freezer, if you will. I don't know if she's gone through that process. Doesn't sound like she did, the way she kind of, saying she has grief around, or not like I have eggs. And I don't even know how long. I don't know I don't know the medical possibilities behind that process, right? Like, is there a certain amount of time that you can have your eggs frozen? How many years? Is it some point to where your body can no longer carry? I mean, because Janet Jackson was 50 with her first child. And I've even seen women older than that have children and have healthy children. Of course, your concern at that point would be, well, now I'm I'm 50 years old or 52 years old and having a baby, and how long am I going to be here? So you really start thinking about your own mortality. But anything can happen to anyone at any age. Just because you have a child at 16 doesn't mean you're going to live to your 90, right? So I think that those are things that can be remedied, but she would have to get on it today. She would have to get on it ASAP, What I do hope for her, and the internet's eating her up, so I'm not going to do that. She says she dates only younger men now because men her age are toxic. The internet is eating her up, so I'm not going to do it personally. But I will say, it almost feels like the way that it kind of feels like she's contradicting herself. Because you don't want to date in your age bracket because you feel like men are toxically masculine. You don't want to be controlled. So you go where you're not being controlled, but are you the one controlling? Does that make sense? So it's like you're taking advantage of the younger guys because they don't know any better. The same thing as older men do to younger girls all the time. So just want to leave that with you. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like. Leave your comments down below. I do my best to try to answer them. And let's start a dialogue. Is it too late for Tracee Ellis Ross, or does she still have time?